Hey guys, welcome back, it's Ripe again. In today's Entitled People story, a Karen demands that I prove my blindness to her because she doesn't believe that I am disabled. Let's dive right into the video. The first story is about an HOA. It starts like this. We live in an HOA, and if you don't, lucky you. We have never had any real problems. They don't do much other than make sure the park and gardens look good. Anyhow, for whatever reason, they decided to add a new rule. It was not needed, but I guess they got bored and wanted something to do. Maybe someone kept leaving their trash cans out all week, but fine, just ask them not to. It's not that hard, really. Anyway, the new rule states when trash cans can be put out. They cannot be out before 6 AM on Wednesdays and must be put back before 6 PM the same day. This is obviously stupid and has a few problems. First of all, some people use a different company. The HOA provided one goes on Wednesday and it's cheap, so most people use it, but you don't have to. Some people have theirs go Monday or Tuesday, and also a lot of people here work in the medical field and just are not home during those times. So no one is there to put out or bring in cans. So a few of us got together on how to comply, but be annoying about it. We decided to comply with their set times as best as we can. Take it out at 6 when a lot of us go to work or go for a morning walk, and take it back in at 6 since most of us are home by then. Some of us help by taking other bins to the street if they are at work, but when it is time to take out the trash, do it as loud as possible. The bin has wheels? Drag it. Got it to the street? Make sure it's firmly placed on the street. Need to take out another bag? Slap it in there and let the lid slam shut. For those who have trash go out on other days, comply with the times but do it on your trash day. But then also put them out on Wednesday as required. If you can, leave trash in them and leave the lid open so it would bake in the sun all day. And yes, it did smell like hot trash. That's the point. After 3 weeks of this, an email was sent out. The rule was thrown out and we were all simply asked to put out and take in our cans within a reasonable amount of time, preferably on trash day. Was it really that effing hard to ask nicely? Why not just address whoever was the problem? Know that because an HOA rule was changed, a lawyer was paid to look over it before the CC&R could be updated. That means this stupid rule cost every resident money. Anyhow, we are already planning on voting out one member of the board who we know is the problem come the summer election. And yeah, Ripe Stars, that is certainly one way to comply with stupid HOA trash can rules. However, I would hope that in the future, OP and his neighbors get the entire HOA disbanded or something, because then surely life would be better. Anyway, the next one is titled Treat Her Well. So I work as a server at a very large restaurant chain that serves unlimited soup and salad as an entree. I was seated with an older married couple during a lunch shift. The wife was very sweet, but the husband was very clearly on a power trip. He did not allow his wife to change her order, picked her drink for her, and interrupted her special salad request by stopping her mid-sentence and having her present her face to him so he could pick off an imaginary piece of lint. She was embarrassed but was keeping the peace. Because we are a high-volume restaurant, our production line is a well-oiled machine that requires all food to be run through the computer and turns tickets for us in less than 10 minutes. However, servers build salads and portion out soups on their own to accommodate the demand of bottomless refills. The soup the husband ordered for both of them sometimes comes with large slices of potato and can be one of our prettiest meals if plated properly. The first round of soup I served to them had all of the ingredients but was missing the large pieces of pretty potato because it was closer to the end of the soup. After serving them their first round, he began to make sideways comments about the composition of the soups, asking if we had a new cook, insisting that the recipe had changed, telling his wife to look at her bowl because she had potatoes this time on their second round. I approached their table to see if they wanted a third round, and before I could speak, he turned and barked, "Yes!" and rolled his eyes. Cue my petty revenge. All of my questions for the table were directly to her, and I prompted her with extra options. Toppings from the salad bar, different drinks, etc. A new cistern of this soup was brought out by the time I was pulling their third round. His wife received the largest slices of potato, plated high and beautiful, and he received the chopped bits every time. The husband was disgruntled, but she was happy to engage. He ended up stealing my favorite blue pen, but she left a nice tip under her last soup bowl. I can only hope that she felt seen during my short period of time waiting on her. And now the title story. It is titled Karen Demands I Prove My Blindness and Slaps Me When I Refuse. Being blind means that whenever I make my way down the street with my cane in hand, I can feel the eyes of strangers on me. It means that if some problem happens, I'm always to be blamed first. It's frustrating how many people simply don't believe that I'm blind because my eyes are not wide like how they are used to seeing. It was one such day as I made my way through the crowded coffee shop. Almost immediately after entering, I can feel someone following me, but I cannot tell for sure. I try to ignore the feeling and focus on ordering my drink, but as I reach for the sugar packets, a shrill voice pierces through the air. The cast is me, Karen, our pain-in-the-butt Karen, and my savior, the woman who defended me. "Excuse me, what do you think you're doing?" Karen says. Judging by the entitled and authoritative voice, it's a Karen. Me, "I'm sorry?" Karen, "You cannot just touch everything like that. Do you even know where your hands have been?" It takes a moment for me to process what she means. I realize that she's referring to the fact that I am blind and using my hands to feel for the sugar packets rather than relying on sight. But before I can even begin to explain, she continues her tirade. "Karen, and that cane of yours is a hazard. You could poke someone's eye out with that thing. You should stay at home if you cannot even walk properly." Me, "I have just as much right to be here as you do, and I know how to use my cane safely." "Whatever." She then walks off, or at least that is what I believe when I hear retreating steps and no more words from her. I finally get my sugar packets and make my way further inside. I almost wanted to run away, but I really wanted to enjoy some coffee in peace, and honestly, Karens like these are not particularly a rare occurrence for me, so I just sit down at a table which is semi-occupied. However, my peace is short-lived as Karen returns even more aggressive than before. "Karen, you know what? You should not even be out in public like this. You're a danger to others and your cane is just an excuse to get attention." Before I can even reply, I feel my cane yanked out of my hands. Panic sets in as I feel disoriented and vulnerable without my trusty tool. Me, "Give that back!" I reach out as far as I can, but I can hear Karen quickly stepping back. "Karen, what are you gonna do about it?" "Excuse me, but what you're doing is completely unacceptable." The voice came from somewhere in front of me, and I immediately recognized it as the woman who had previously allowed me to share a table with her. "My savior, that cane is a lifeline for this person and you have no right to take it away or insult them like that. Karen, mind your own business." I'm grateful for the woman's intervention, but I start to feel more and more unsafe and vulnerable, so I try to stand up. "Karen, you're just pretending to be blind. You're making it all up for attention. I know your generation, making up stuff so you don't have to work a day and get by on charity." Me, "I'm not faking anything. And even if I were, why does that matter to you? Why do you care so much about what I do or don't do?" "Karen, because you're inconveniencing the rest of us. And because I know con artists like you only know how to steal from other people." It's not the first time I'm hearing that, but it still hurts the same. Judging by Karen's voice, I can tell that she is standing near me, so I reach out blindly for my cane. Karen obviously starts protesting, but I tune her out and finally get a hold of my cane when suddenly I feel a sharp pain on my cheek. This Karen just slapped me. This jerk of a person yanks my cane back and pushes at my shoulder, making me almost fall if it wasn't for the chair behind me. I put a hand on my cheek, wincing at the pain as I start struggling to catch my breath. Never have I ever had an encounter like this. Of all the insensitive people I've come across, this Karen was the worst. And now, despite the fact that she can see how distressed I am, she just continues to mock me. "Karen, are you having a little panic attack? Maybe you should have thought twice before trying to attack me using your stupid cane." Karen's violent behavior has triggered a full-blown panic attack and I'm at a loss for what to do. "Savior, are you okay?" The woman who stood up for me earlier puts a comforting hand on my back. I cannot speak, but I manage to nod my head. The woman takes charge, calling for someone to get me a glass of water and telling Karen to back off. "Savior, you're a scum if you think it's right to slap just because you cannot look past your prejudice. Now get lost or I'll call the police on you." I don't know what Karen said in reply, but when I hear her retreating steps, I finally start to calm down. The woman helps me drink some water and she drags her chair near me to talk me down my panic attack. It's starting to look like I'm no longer in danger until I again hear Karen's voice. Karen, I wanna report a con artist. This woman pretends to be blind and uses it as an excuse to pickpocket people. And that woman there is in on it too. They are both liars and thieves. I wanna scream at her and tell her that she's the real liar, but I know that I need to keep my cool. I again hear a voice, but this time it's a man. Officer, is this true? Me, no, it's not true. I am blind and I've never stolen anything from anyone. The woman beside me was just trying to help me when Karen was being aggressive towards me. Officer, we'll need to see some identification and we'll have to search your belongings for any stolen items. Of course, the police will rather believe this Karen instead of a blind person. My hands shake as I hand over my ID to the police officer and then wait. I can hear him mutter, "She doesn't look blind," before he finally clears his throat. Officer, can you prove it? I feel violated and harassed as he questions my disability, something that I have to live with every day. My voice trembles as I try to explain that I have a visual impairment and cannot see, but the officer doesn't seem convinced. Savior, officer, I saw this woman with her cane. She is blind and she just wanted to get her coffee. You are harassing her. Her words ring out with authority and the officer seems to back off, but he still searches my pockets and purse all the while I'm trying not to go in another panic attack. Of course, he finds nothing. Officer, alright, we'll let you go this time, but don't let us catch you doing anything suspicious. Savior, excuse me? You found nothing on this woman and you're still asking her not to do anything suspicious? What about this Karen? Officer, Karen was just being a cautious citizen. Savior, I'm an attorney, so think twice before twisting the story. I feel glee at having encountered such a strong woman and honestly, I feel a sick satisfaction that I might be able to get revenge on this Karen. Karen, the one twisting the story here is you. Savior, well, then I think you won't have a problem to prove this in court. If my client here wants to press charges. I'm unsure why she called me a client. I got to know later that the woman ran a charity to fight cases free of charge for disabled people, but I nod as a response because God, do I want Karen to feel the same humiliation I felt. So then we go to the police station where I pressed charges against Karen. I was not sure if there was any chances of me winning, but my attorney was a genius and not only did we win the case and put Karen behind bars for a few months, we also managed to get Karen fined for putting me under emotional stress. It gave me so much satisfaction to walk out of the courtroom that day with not only justice served, but also a friend earned. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I gotta say, it is just infuriating to read about these entitled unhinged Karens that question the disabilities of others. I cannot even fathom how someone can think that is a good idea in the first place. Absolutely insane. Either way, if you enjoyed the story so far, please don't forget to like the video and maybe even post a comment if you want to support me. The next one is titled Malicious Compliance Done Perfectly. I worked for a grocery store in Australia for close to a decade. It was not terrible and management treated us with respect for my first few years there. If someone could not make a shift, they would work with us to find a replacement, and we were rarely short-staffed, so worst case scenario, things would still run relatively smoothly even if we were missing a few on a given day. Fast forward a few years and the good manager retires and an assistant manager from a nearby store is promoted to managing this store. Let's call him Brad, for the sake of the story. Brad approached the position with an ego, treating the store as his to fix. Even though things had been running quite smoothly for years before he was in the picture. Part of his vision of fixing the store was stricter adherence to company-wide guidelines in terms of staffing numbers and leave requests. For example, the amount of staff to be rostered on is determined by the number of customers through our doors each day. Staff who were actually experienced at this location knew that we needed more than what the company guidelines specified to be able to function effectively. So within the first month of Brad's tenure at the store, hours are being cut dramatically across the store, causing chaos as nobody was used to the added workload. When confronted about this by other members of management, he immediately dismisses them, quoting company guidelines. During the same period of time, staff began to notice that any request for leave was being instantly denied by Brad. Now, the company guideline is to give at least 2 weeks notice if you know that you will need a day off. It goes without saying, sometimes friends or family will make last-minute plans that you would like to attend, or you cannot work a shift due to compassionate reasons. Prior to Brad, if you needed some time off, it was as simple as honestly communicating your situation with your manager. Almost always were we able to come up with a solution, and taking a day off was never a big deal. Keep in mind, these guidelines are just that. Just guidelines, not strict rules that must be enforced or something. Store managers are given a rather loose collar from higher management. As long as things are running smoothly and staff are happy, upper management will usually take a rather hands-off approach. They won't micromanage each individual store, ensuring every little corporate guideline is being adhered to unless there are obvious issues requiring their attention. So now Brad's about a month into his position and we are short-staffed throughout the store. Everyone is stressed, requests for leave are being denied due to the lack of staff that Brad caused in the first place. Of course, Brad quotes company policy each and every time he does this. He won't even allow us to organize someone else to cover shifts as it is too much paperwork. It's a Saturday and I am due to work my regular shift that same night. I then get a call from a friend with a spare ticket to see my favorite artist's sold-out show. I want to go and I've spoken to a colleague who's willing to cover my shift, so I'm not screwing over my team. I then call the store and I speak to Brad, tell him the situation and that I have someone to cover said shift. Brad predictably gives me the same response that he's been giving everyone else. Sorry, as per Grocery Stores Act's staffing policy, you must give 2 weeks notice for any time off. It does not matter if someone else is willing to take the shift. So cue my malicious compliance. For a manager who's so into following rules, I was surprised to discover that he never took into account Grocery Store Act's sick leave policy. Staff are entitled to paid sick leave for a day without the requirement of a doctor's note. So if you take 2 days or more off consecutively, then you need a medical certificate. I call back an hour after my initial call. This time I tell Brad that I've come down with the most terrible headache and that there's no way I can work that night. He does not even reply to me. I can faintly hear him angrily mumble that he'll have to call in last-minute replacement before hanging up. It didn't take long for staff to catch on to this loophole. Staff needing time off with less than 2 weeks notice would no longer bring it to their manager's attention immediately, instead opting to call in sick the day of each time. Obviously, this ensured further chaos in terms of lack of staff, a problem I never experienced in my near decade at the store. Brad proceeded to quit after about a month and a half of being manager. Replacing him was the old assistant manager that has been at this location for several years at this point. It took a while to reverse the damage Brad had caused, but things got back to normal with someone who actually knew how to run the store at the helm. And yeah, right, stars, I exactly know this kind of manager. It's those people that think so highly of themselves and think that they can never be wrong and are absolutely better than others. Therefore, it is so satisfying to see them get proven wrong. Have you ever had to deal with a person like this? Let me know in the comments. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. I was born and raised in the country of Belarus. I no longer live there as I took the plunge to move to a completely different country and get citizenship there. But I will say that I have some remarkably interesting stories from there. Actually, perhaps my most interesting stories come from my time as a landlord over there. I really hate that term, but what else do you call it? I had inherited a property when I already had my own, but instead of selling it, I decided to rent it out. Rent in Belarus is pretty cheap, but the money stretches a lot further than it would in Western countries. I did encounter a few interesting people while renting out my property. And one in particular I will never forget. I actually went to jail overnight because of her. Can you believe that? So let me first start off by saying that this Karen was never super friendly from the get-go. She was not necessarily rude to me at first. I mean, maybe that is because she had to be somewhat civil since she was renting a house from me, but anyways, she was civil. I never really had a problem with her until a few months after she moved in. I noticed that particular stuff around the house would break. It was always something that required for me to fix it too. For those that don't understand, there are certain things that renters have a right to, and if I refused to fix something, then I could be in trouble. For example, on one occasion during the cold winter season, she complained that the heating unit was not working and the house was unbearably cold. By law, I had 30 days to fix it, and obviously I was already aware that there was some cost in owning a house, but repairs like these can get expensive pretty fast. Over the next few months her attitude got worse and worse and she stopped paying her rent. At first I was too naive because she told me that she was having money issues. Now, after 2 missed rent payments, I can legally evict her. I know that seems like a lot, right? Well, I was a dummy because I waited until it was 4 rent payments, and meaning yes, she was behind 4 months. Now, that is a lot of money missing. I would be lying if I said that the rent money from the property did not help me out, but that was beside the point. It also paid for a lot of the repairs and maintenance, and well, I gave her a warning before I evicted her. I could not keep waiting for rent money, and it was becoming noticeably clear that she did not have any money issues going on, but was rather showing her true colors and taking advantage of my niceness. Well, of course, she was not happy about that. She has a few family members in the police, and she told me that she was going to have me arrested. At first, I obviously did not believe her. I thought she was just being nasty and threatening me. And yes, a part of me did feel bad for evicting her, but like I said, I could not keep playing Mr. Nice. Well, when eviction day came, I pulled up to her house and there is already a police officer there. Apparently, she is telling them that I broke into her house last night. The windows were smashed, but it was because she smashed them herself. As I looked around, I started seeing other damages done to the property. I was just baffled. She was trying to claim that she owned the house and that I broke in. I tried to tell the police officers that I was the homeowner and could even provide documents, but they did not listen. I think some of them knew her, or maybe one of them was her relative. Anyways, they literally end up arresting me for breaking and entering. I argued that they had no proof to her story, like how did they assume she owned the house when she was just in fact the renter? Well, apparently her waving a key to the house in front of their face was enough for them. So I ended up spending the night in jail, which was not incredibly fun. I kept trying to explain to them the situation multiple times and no one listened. I even told them I could prove she signed a rent agreement and was not meeting her half of the agreement by obviously paying her rent on time. I mean, she was not even paying it at all, but unfortunately for them I was allowed 1 phone call. I called my sister and gave her directions on how to get into the safe in my house. In my safe, I kept all important documents such as stuff regarding the property, the papers from when I inherited the house, etc. She got papers that proved Karen was a tenant and I was the actual owner. She was able to bring them down to the police station and my 1-day jail stay was over. Karen ends up getting charged with squatting, which she had to pay a 1K fine. She also ended up getting arrested for filing a false police report when she told the police I broke into her house. She also has to pay for the damages she caused to the house. Obviously, she had to move out, but it was so nice not to deal with her after that. Also, she did actually make payments on the fine and the damage she did, so that was a win. Note to myself, always do a background check on your tenants before you sign the rent agreement. And yeah, ripe stars, I guess tenants such as these certainly can make your life hell, but I would hope that this does not happen that often. I would argue that people that are as entitled as crazy as this are thankfully still quite rare in this world. And with this, we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please check out my endless playlist, where you can find thousands of hours of content. In addition, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much in advance, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.